Yeah.
What's the most random fact you know by heart?
That you can't lick your elbow. I know there's going to be a lot. You cannot actually lick. Yeah. People don't think about you as much as you think about you. So
Yes.
I put posts and I have sometimes spelling mistakes in my posts that I notice only later on because, and I'm a copywriter. Having a nice looking product is not going to make someone buy your product. You need to be able to communicate why, and you can't communicate why through a picture. A lot of people think CRO experimentation, they think, oh, okay, A/B testing ads. Like, well, that's one part of it, but that's not the only thing. There's so much more.
What do you think about the future of CRO?
I think the bigger question is CRO just going to stay as it is, or is it going to be absorbed by a different department?
Welcome to another episode of the Women in CRO series by VWO Podcast. This series is an ode to the contribution of women in the CRO industry. Before we speak to our special guest for this episode, here's a quick summary of who we are and what we do. VWO is a leading experience optimization platform that helps fast-growing brands optimize their digital experiences. Using our latest product, VWO Insights, you can understand user journeys and identify conversion roadblocks on your website and mobile app. So, without any further delay, let's jump right into the conversation.
Hello, everyone, all the viewers and all the listeners, everybody who's listening to this podcast. On today's episode, we have Eden Bidani, Head of Strategy and Copy at CAPE.Agency. Eden is a seasoned professional who specializes in helping SaaS, tech, IT, and IoT companies acquire more customers profitably through strategic messaging. With over a decade of experience, Eden has honed her skills in conversion copywriting, conversion optimization, and crafting compelling narratives that resonate with your target audience. At CAPE.Agency, Eden and her team work tirelessly to reveal the full potential of a company's technology by translating complex concepts into clear and impactful messaging. Whether it's revamping website copy, optimizing ad campaigns, or refining email sequences, Eden's expertise ensures that businesses effectively communicate their value proposition to their audience. You can visit CAPE.Agency to learn more about her amazing work. Hey, Eden, how are you?
Hi, thank you. It's good to speak with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today.
And thank you so much for accepting the invite and becoming a part of this podcast. I actually am looking forward to this conversation, specifically when we talk about women in any industry. That is something that I'm very passionate about. So thank you so much for taking out your valuable time and speaking to us. How's your day been so far? How's 2024 been so far? Any resolutions or any highlights that you'd like to talk about?
No, so I think 2024 is off to a bang as you hit the ground running. As you know, it's one of those funny things. Conversion rate optimization, experimentation, and copywriting in general. It's one of those things that when people need it, they really need it. So it's almost like it's not such a nice comparison, but it's like plumbing or a handyman. It's like this businesses always need someone to come in and give them a hand to lift their conversion rates and to help them drive better business results. So there's always something to do, always someone that needs help, or they're launching a new product, or they're repositioning, or there's always so many exciting things going on. So there's plenty to do. Busy.
Great to hear that. That 2024 has been a bang on for you up till now, and hopefully it stays the same, and even better the next year. Let's talk about a little about your journey, right? When you were growing up, was this something that you had imagined you'd be doing after so many years, or was it a separate path that you wanted to take and kind of came into this journey midway? And just walk us through your journey a little.
Yeah, so this is absolutely not where I expected or imagined I would end up. When I went to university, I studied anthropology and sociology, and I thought marketing, everything to do with marketing, advertising, growing business. I was so not in that headspace at all whatsoever. But while I was working at university, while I was studying at university, I was working in a sales job to help, pay for rent, pay the bills, and I actually loved it. And I got over that. I've managed to make peace with that conflict between the need to grow businesses and sell, and the need to be authentic and open and understanding and have great communication. Because at the end of the day, when companies have good products, when they're good, solid companies, and they have something that is able to deliver incredible value to a group of people, what they struggle with most is that authentic communication. It's how do you tell people about that in a way where you don't have to shout, you don't have to forcefully try to sell someone something, but how do you communicate that value of what you have to offer in a way that the audience is able to best receive that message. And basically that's everything to do with conversion rate optimization and copywriting especially. So I was able to make peace between those two kind of polar opposites, sales and anthropology, and actually bring them together today to where I am working.
Great. And when you just used the word shout and make your audiences realize what you're talking about, right? Recently I was going through your LinkedIn, and there was one post that I think a few hours ago, I think you posted about Travis Kelce meme, right? And you mentioned if you have to shout, you can't. There's something really wrong with your copy. So that just immediately that particular meme came into my memory, right? And while we were talking about your journey, right? Something that I love when I'm talking to different people is the perspective that they bring into our lives, right? How they think about the world in general. Are there any philosophies or principles that you abide by, and something that has shaped up your life?
In general, I think the guiding principle for me, especially, has been what I learned in anthropology. And I think one of the best ways that someone put it to me once, it's like the saying, everyone has a right to an opinion, but that's also an opinion. So that statement is also an opinion. So when you think about things that way, it's whenever you are approached with a situation, or you're facing a certain situation, what other perspectives can you look at it from? So you have an immediate gut reaction, okay, but then let's try and think, why did you have that reaction? And now let's then peel back the layers to see if there are other perspectives you can use to look at the same problem or look at the same situation. And very often, just by shifting your perspective and trying to get past what your initial gut reaction was, it leads to so many deep, incredible insights. Because anthropology, at the end of the day, is trying to see the world from someone else's perspective, which obviously for conversion rate optimization is huge, because experimentation is huge, because you're really trying to put yourself in the user's shoes as much as possible before actually putting them in experiments. So it's really powerful in helping you get to the root cause of what the problem is, and not just the surface problem. So not surface level problems like CTA color button CTA button color, or it's this headline is something wrong with it. It's actually, maybe we're taking the entire wrong approach with this page. Maybe we need to rethink about where this fits into the user's experience as a whole. And so it's not always so simple. It's very rarely a surface level thing.
Absolutely. And a great insight. I feel since CRO is still a niche, I would say it's still growing, right? A lot of organizations are still adapting to it. I feel like the very first principle that a lot of the organizations kind of don't step into the very first as the very first step is trying to understand your users, right? Trying to understand your visitors and optimizing for them, because eventually you would want to convert them, right? You will have to think as per how they are thinking and optimize for their betters. So yeah, that's definitely a great insight. And just one more thing, while you were talking about a lot of I see how anthropology is kind of a big part, has been a big part of your life, right? And it's also helping you in CRO as well. Are there any sort of success stories that you'd like to talk about where you might have used it as a concept, and for some client that worked out really well for them?
Yes, absolutely. One of the examples that I love to share, and I have permission to share, was I was working back with John Ostrowski. Sorry if I didn't pronounce his surname correctly. Also known as Positive John, who's a very, very also a big name in the CRO, in CRO and experimentation. And we were brainstorming together for a company that he was working at the time called Brainly, and they were looking to increase conversions they were looking to increase the number of signups. So the way they had the current flow was that users who would be using the web app would be presented, would enter their information, and they would be presented with one answer. But then like a blurred paywall would come up. It's not a paywall, but it's like if you go to the New York Times, you go to something or any other site and ask you can see the top third of the article, and then it will ask, subscribe to see the rest of the article, and etc. So they were taking the same approach basically initially, because they wanted to encourage people to actually download the app. The app was free, but the user experience was that they put in their information, they got one answer, and then they were prompted with this paywall type of screen in order to encourage them to download the app. They were getting tons of negative user feedback from it. People were really frustrated with it, and they'd been trying a couple of different copy variations, and the copy wasn't bad. This is the thing. The copy was great. It was clear. It was to the point. It had 3 bullets talking about all the benefits that were of the app, but still, it was really frustrating people. And so we started brainstorming, and I said, I think one of the things is that looking at this, it's like, I know this sounds like the logical way to do it, but when people see this paywall, it's like a gut reaction. They have this negative gut reaction. Like, they've seen it in other places, and it's really frustrating for them. Mm-hmm. They probably don't even get a chance to read all of the copy. And instead, maybe we're trying too hard to sell the app, even though it's free. Maybe we're trying too hard to push the conversion to the app instead of making it seem like a logical next step. Yeah. So we said the hypothesis was, well, let's change it and say, instead of saying, get the app for free, has all these amazing benefits, sign up now, to unlock more answers, sign up for download the app to reveal more answers. By the way, it's free. Yeah. Really simple. 2 lines of copy, just prompting them. It's like, you know what, you can unlock more answers immediately, and you're not going to have to pay for anything. All you need to do is download the app. So that's what they started running, and the results were immediate. They had 0 negative feedback, and conversions doubled instantly for app downloads. So immediately there was a cut in the number of negative feedback they had from users, and then the conversion rate as well doubled. So it was only by actually looking at from the user's experience and saying, well, they were seeing a roadblock to what they wanted. What they wanted was to see more answers. So they were seeing a roadblock. It's like, I don't want an app. I want to see more answers. So we simply took away that illusion of a roadblock and said, look, you can get more answers if you do this one thing. And it made it seem like downloading the app was the absolute logical choice for them to do that. And so that's John likes to refer to that experiment as well a lot.
And like you rightly, like when you were talking about this success story, right? One thing that I think a lot of users, a lot of our listeners would be interested in kind of understanding is, how do you, what's the first step of understanding your target audience, and how do you tailor your web copy, or any copy for that matter, in order to resonate with them? Like, what would be the first step, and then how do you go about it?
Absolutely. Great question. The first thing I always try to do, and again, it depends on the client and the availability, but I try to speak with the client's customers one-on-one. That is the most impactful way to get really deep qualitative information and a deeper understanding about them. Second, I mean, nothing compares to be able to sit down with for 30 minutes, 40 minutes with someone who bought the product, loves it, and now they're going to tell you why they love it and what's the value in it. So you can actually then use what they're telling you in order to improve that experience. Improve the experiences on the other end, both in copy, in terms of UX, layout, absolutely everything. And at the same time, so it's not just that. It's if you can't speak with them in interviews, then trying to run a survey, and not like an NPS survey. Do you like our product? Yes, no, but even asking a simple question: what is the one most impactful thing that this product has done for you? And and it's an open-ended question, but they can really get into a lot of detail, describing how it's benefiting them and what value they see that it delivers. I think that is and that is the closest way or fastest way to get to the audience's understanding of how they see the product or how they see the company and how it's positioned in their mind, which is crucial to be able to understand how can we reach more, how we can reach a wider audience, how we can reach more of these customers.
I didn't just I know that when I'm working with a lot of clients from different industries, one obstacle that I face certain times is trying to make our clients understand how copy can be a simple copy change can be so beneficial and can impact our conversion rate at a very high level. The effort is so low, but the impact could be really high. Like, do you have certain clients who probably, when you're reaching out to them for example, there's an outbound approach, right? And just explaining it to them how copy can change things. How do you go about it, and what all have you heard so far about when they come back to you with rebuttal saying, oh, we don't believe in the fact that copy could make such a huge change? How do you take over that?
That's very, very tricky. It's very tricky to work with a client that is not open to exploring new directions. I think the way that I tend to explain it to clients is that a copy is one element of the user experience, but it has an impact on the entire user experience. So yes, design is important. Yes, the UX, UI, everything, the channel it appears, all those elements are important. But the copy is really a defining element of the user experience because it acts as an interface it helps the audience understand what they're seeing on the page, what they need to do, where they need to go, what they need to click on, why they should convert. Having a beautiful layout on a website is not going to make someone buy your product. Having a nice looking product is not going to make someone buy your product. You need to be able to communicate why, and you can't communicate why through a picture. I will say, so there are some clients who say, but Apple does it. They have ads with 2 words and everyone buys their stuff. Or Nike does it. They don't even need to have words in their ads. They just have a picture of someone all sweaty and everyone buys their stuff. But Apple and Nike have been spending billions of dollars on marketing. Everyone knows who they are. Everyone knows who they are. They don't need to explain why anymore. For companies that have not yet spent billions of dollars and have 40 plus years that they've been ruling the market, you do need to explain why people should buy from you, or what is that value. And copy is the fastest way to explain that.
Absolutely. Really put that in a very good perspective, and I feel this shall be very helpful for a lot of our users. In fact, for me as well, when I go back to certain clients who are open to copy changes, I might just use certain points from here. So thank you so much. And I was talking about your LinkedIn, right? You have quite a good following on LinkedIn. You post you're quite regular with your posts as well, especially when we talk about the 1 minute conversion copywriting that you do. for anybody who is starting out, right, for a beginner or somebody who started out but is still trying to find certain direction, or somebody who's hesitant in even starting, somebody like me, right? I want to start writing on LinkedIn, but there's some sort of hesitation. What's your advice to those set of users or people?
Absolutely. I'm going to give some advice that I heard somewhere, and I actually gave to my eldest daughter the other day. People don't think about you as much as you think about you. So
Yes.
it's like, when we leave the house in the morning, if our hair's not exactly right, or there's a small coffee stain here, or this, or whatever, all these kinds of details can really really annoy us, and we think that the whole world is looking at that one stain on the shirt, or that one hair that's out of place, or that that one thing, or that dark circle under the eyes, or whatever. But rarely do people actually notice that, because they're also thinking about themselves from that same perspective. They're also thinking, oh, she's probably looking at the stain on my shirt, and we're thinking they're looking at the stain on my shirt. So everyone is actually really already preoccupied with themselves, and they do not see what you see of yourself. So having that understanding, don't be afraid to start posting. I know it can be really nerve-wracking, but people will see it and they will forget it, and they will see it and they will forget it, and they might engage. And so even if I put posts, and I have sometimes spelling mistakes in my posts that I notice only later on, because and I'm a copywriter, and people say, what's the problem? So, well, I am a human, so it happens. But I don't think I haven't had a client come to me and say, I'm not going to work with you because you have a spelling mistake in your LinkedIn post. Like, it's not here, or that hook wasn't sharp enough, or like, they're not judging you by that. They're not looking as deeply at that as you are. So
Yeah.
don't need to be so afraid of getting out there and just doing it. And the more you practice at it, the easier it becomes.
And considering the kind of traction that you have for your post, right? Like, industry folks really look forward to it. Any tips on somebody who's kind of also starting as a freelancer, maybe, who wants to build their own brand? Any tips on what all they should do on their LinkedIn platform in order to gauge more traction towards their platform, and the engagement is a lot better?
Absolutely. So for every post that you put out, make sure you're commenting or engaging with other people's posts to at least twice as much. So the best way to do that, you want to take, but you have to give as well. So and I'll be totally transparent. Some weeks I don't even have time to post, but I'll spend time trying to comment on other people's posts, and then that still gets traction back to your profile and to your content. It still gives it a lift on the platform. I think it's just really important to as well engage with others, because they're not just looking at what you post, they want to know how you think as well, I think. And that's the thing. A lot of people, copywriters especially, but people in general, they're often hired because of how they think, and not necessarily because of what they do. People like, I like the way they think, or that's smart, or that's really clever, or that's a deep insight that I didn't know before. That sounds really interesting. I want to know more about that person, or I want to potentially work with them. So even a very thoughtful comment on a post, something that even challenges, well, I know you've said this, but have you considered this perspective? Anything, but feel free to share, your professional opinion on things in the comments, and not just in posts. Like, that engagement is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great insight again. And you were talking about how you go about the process of kind of understanding your target audience and making the copy resonate with them, right? Is there like an example that you'd like to share with us of, like, what kind of feedback did you receive from the customers that you spoke, and how you use that feedback into your copy and incorporated that feedback, and then that sort of helped the client?
Absolutely. So a perfect example, there was a luxury woman's bag from Belgium that I was working with a while back, and they wanted to create a really strong landing page for their product that talked about all the benefits and everything. And I said, we really need to speak with your customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. I was able to interview 5 of their customers, and the amount of feedback was just, it was mind blowing. They gave me so many new words and descriptions for what their life was like before and what their life was like after with these beautiful bags that they had in there. It's a luxury work bag, so it's practical and it looks nice,
Yes.
which is fantastic, which is great. And I'll just one of the examples, like she's a teacher. She said, I used to every day I would have 3 bags in the trunk of my car. She said, I'd have a gym bag, I had a lunch bag, and I had my work bag. I had all of these things with me, and I would switch in my bags in and out of the trunk all day long, and I was lugging 3 bags like with me in around school and things like that. And now she said, and I can fit like 80% of the thing, like almost everything, into this one beautiful bag. And she said, and the best part, it does not look like a mom bag. Like I will never forget that. She said, it doesn't look like a mom bag. And I was like, what do you mean a mom bag? It's just like just any old bag that you stuff everything in because you've got a bunch of kids and you've got so much to do with your day, and you just take it with you because everything doesn't fit in something else. And it was such a powerful description. I didn't want a mom bag. I didn't want to look like I was carrying airplane luggage with a little bag with wheels, like a little trolley bag with wheels. Those descriptions made it straight through to the landing page to describe it's like the customer's experience. You don't want to have a bag that looks like a mom bag. You don't want to look like you're late for a flight all the time because you're carrying a trolley behind you. Like those descriptions made it to the page, and that page is now, it's almost coming up to 3 years, I think, since we launched it, and it's still their highest converting page. It's every time they run it, it still works. As far as I know. I'll double check with them now after this, but yeah, it converts really, really well for them.
And I'm just taking this example itself, right? I'm sure that particular category for the brand, was it more that they, and again, it's only if you remember that, was it that those, the majority demographic, or when we talk about the demographic of the customers, right? Was it the majority of the contribution came from maybe the middle-aged women, or was it also the younger women? Because I know that when we're targeting something like this, right, not a mom bag or something like that, it resonates with a certain set of users, but might not resonate with the other set of users, right? So were we targeting that landing page for that specific user, or did we not have the customer base of the younger woman at all?
No, that's a great question. They did actually have younger customers as well that they did interview. And so they still did have some similar language that crossed over. So they didn't say mom bag, but they said an old duffel bag. They also said about the airplane luggage. Like yes. the little trolley bags. So they also had things that overlapped, even though they weren't the same. So we tried to include when you do this process of customer research, I try to look for if we're going for a broader audience, so not just a specific, like you said, middle-aged women demographic. If we're trying to expand that to include, younger professionals as well, to still try and find what are the common denominators. So are there words that both of them use? And if not, then how can we include both of them and in a way that makes sense and that speaks to both of them, in what order we put those words in? So again, if I put mom bag first, but we know that we have a large demographic that's 18 to 25, if that's the first word they see, that's, then they might not read the rest of the sentence. But if we put an old duffel bag, That's something that's like we said, the trolley bag dragging behind them. That's something that both of them said. So you put that first. So you just rank them differently. So try and get those ones that speak to both audiences first.
Got it. And what do you think about the future of CRO? Like, I know you've been in the industry, you've seen it evolve. What are your thoughts as to where it's headed, and what all can we do in order to kind of expand its reach?
That's a really interesting question. I think the bigger question is CRO just going to stay as it is, or is it going to be absorbed by a different department? I think currently it really sits between marketing and product, but it seems to be because there's a lot of conversion rate optimization that happens naturally in marketing. But then there's a lot that's going on with product at the moment, with feature experimentation and all of this, which is also really important. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I have a feeling that CRO is going to start becoming part and parcel of product departments in the future, because product, and especially product marketing, is now starting to own vision, positioning, messaging, and some of the content creation elements, as well as then the actual product itself. So that all ties it. So it makes sense that CRO is probably likely to be absorbed into that, though they will still interface a lot with marketing. But I think being really tied into product and product marketing is where it's going to be going. And I think that will be, because I don't think enough feature experimentation or pricing experimentation, I don't think that happens enough. I think it's still, a lot of people think CRO experimentation, they think, oh, okay, A/B testing ads. Like, well, that's one part of it, but that's not the only thing. There's so much more. There is so much more to experimentation. And like you said, it's a niche, but it's the impact it can have on an organization is just so huge. It's absolutely huge. It's part and parcel of the business strategy. It helps people to stay competitive, to stay a step ahead, to keep evolving in line with the needs of their audience and their consumers. And it's so powerful.
My next question, while you were talking about this, actually not a question, something that I realized with my time in CRO, right? You mentioned that certain clients or certain customers have this thought process that you start with A/B testing your ads first, and then it's not just about that. I've also seen certain clients who start with just pricing or feature tests and don't expand their horizons further, right? Like, so just certain basic tests, or certain copy tests, or certain ad tests for that matter. Because like you rightly mentioned, CRO is something that will have a huge impact on the organization if connected with a lot of different kinds of departments, right? It can have so many, like when you correlate your efforts, it can give you large benefits. But a lot of customers do not realize that, or fail to kind of realize that. Any sort of experiences that you've had that resonate with this example?
That's a really good question. Not something specifically that I call off the top of my head, but I'll give you an example. I think I understand where CRO is potentially going in terms of becoming part and parcel of product and product marketing, but at the end of the day, what it really does is it helps inform and support the execution of the business strategy. So either it becomes a C-level, either it becomes absorbed in terms of C-level activities, it becomes a strategy department, or it's going to be in product. I think probably the first shift is to product, and then it might eventually be able to make it easier for it to get from product. Well, if you're doing product and product marketing and this and this, and okay, it makes sense that it's tied into strategy, and it kind of shifts further up the ladder that way. But I think, there almost needs to be a chief experimentation officer that works alongside the CEO, that has that equal say, because then they're able to be in touch with all these other different people in these departments. I'll give you an example. Sometimes when you start peeling back the layers of a conversion problem, you find out it's something that their visual identity and their copy are so totally out of alignment. So it's like they look corporate, but then they're trying to sound fun and cool and young, or that they look fun and cool and young and they sound corporate. And it's like you're getting into branding and positioning problems, which is tied to the business strategy. And you need to go back and say, well, what's changed in the business over the last 12 months? And so why has this change happened? Okay, we need to do something to change the perspective and get it back on track. Just iterating and iterating and iterating on lots of tiny elements on the website is not going to create that huge shift and get the company back on track. I'll give you an example. I'm working with an enterprise client now that they're in DevSecOps. So, and they went through a rebrand and repositioning about 2 years ago, and they lost all their brand equity. Unfortunately, people have no idea. They shifted and they added products, but people now don't recognize who they are, and they don't know what they have to offer. It's like so many things changed, and they're really struggling to bring that in. But now, as we're working together, we've been able to implement a narrative, implement a story that actually explains clearly who they are, what they are, and how they're delivering value. They're implementing it already in sales pitches. They're seeing good results already, good interest from buyers, interest from peers in the industry as to what this story is. They're already starting to get back on track, and we haven't even actually touched the website yet. So that's why I'm like experimentation. It's yes, it's like you said, it's related to the product. Yes, it's related to ads and A/B testing, but it's really also about the business strategy as a whole. We did the research, we had a hypothesis, we're testing the hypothesis in these sales pitches, and it's getting traction. So now we basically pre-validated it, and now we're rolling out changes to the website to make that match. And then they can continue tweaking things in the website. But I mean, this is the power of experimentation, right? It comes from that angle, but sometimes the problem is really, really deep. You have to get to the root of it.
Yeah, definitely. And even at VWO, like since of course we're an experimentation platform, right? We also ensure that we're kind of always experimenting with anything and everything within the organization. So that's again a learning that I have had while working with the organization. Just experiment everything, be it not just like in your professional front, but also in general with your life, right? Keep experimenting. There's nobody knows the exact rule book of how to live your life. Just go ahead, experiment. If it wins, it wins. If it doesn't, we have our learnings, right? So that's definitely a great side. Talking about how it's incorporating into different, how it's taking up its space in different departments of the organization, right? What's your take on AI? It's the current hot topic, right? And even for content, when we talk about content, a lot of advice that is coming in is use AI to generate copies. What's your take on that, and how are you incorporating AI within your work?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I have not yet cracked the code in terms of how to use AI with my own work. I'll be honest. First of all, I often work with a lot of tech. I do work with a lot of tech companies, so they often have sensitive IP, and I can't put that into any external system. So that strikes out ChatGPT and everything else anyway before I've even started, and that's fine. I think it's great for a lot of things. Let me reframe that in a different way. I'm not a designer. I look at Midjourney and DALL-E and I think, wow, that's so cool. But that's because I don't get design and I don't know how to do it myself. For me, it's easier to sometimes just write the thing from scratch instead of trying to perfect the prompt, put something in and then actually get something out that I can use it. I would still need to tweak it and edit it and change it up. But when I get the output back, I don't often find things that are usable. So yes, it could be that there is a great deal of prompt engineering that needs to happen. But for me, as someone who has this existing skill, it's often longer for me to spend that time prompting and editing and then prompting and editing again to try and get something when I could have just written it in the first place. Same thing for some designers. I think there are definitely elements and things that it can help with. You can feed it, for example, a transcript and say, what are the key points that come out of this as a result? What are the key themes? Feed it survey data, anonymized survey data. What are the top pain points? What are the top benefits? Things like that. Great. Churning things that the brain or humans take very long time to do. Fantastic. It can really help with a lot of those things and get that process moving faster. But so it's a real helpmate, and there are a lot of things that it can do. It's a real co-pilot. It's a great assistant. There are many things that it can do to automate, and that on the back end. In terms of content, it's very difficult because what it essentially does, ChatGPT especially, is predicting the next likely word. So often it'll produce content that looks okay, but the second you actually start reading it, you sometimes see that there are sentences that loop back on itself, or one point is repeated consistently just using different words. So you might have 3 paragraphs, and paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 are actually talking about the same thing. It just uses different words. So you could actually consolidate them both into one paragraph. But someone who is not necessarily trained in that content is not able to split it up and chop it down into those bits, and might just publish it as is. Now, doesn't mean that the content is wrong, but it means that between paragraphs, you only had 2 paragraphs when it split it up into 3. So you've made people read an extra paragraph and you didn't give them additional value. So I'm getting really deep into dissecting it. But the other thing I sometimes use ChatGPT for is telling me what I shouldn't write. So if I've because it's trained on everything available on the internet. So if it outputs me something, I know I need to write something very different, because that's the total sum of what everyone has of what it's pulled up. So I know that I need to do something different, because otherwise it's not going to stand out. It's going to sound like more of the same.
Yes, that's a great point, actually. A lot of the users who are using AI to kind of write those prompts and generate copies, or maybe anything that they're using it for, right? They might want to also use it for other purposes in order to check their own work, and in order to ensure that, okay, this is not something that's going to be common and it's not going to stand out, right? So that's definitely a good point. And since this is all about women in CRO, right? Any particular leaders that you look up to, any women specifically in the industry that you look up to, really like their work?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorites is Talia Wolf.
Yeah,
from Get Uplift. She was the first. I bought my very first online course from her on emotional conversion rate optimization, and I absolutely loved it. I've just been following. I really admire everything that she's done, because it's because again, and I see it today as well. A lot of people look to optimize things to death. Let's put it that way. It's like they just keep spinning and spinning on these surface level tactics. And when Talia says, it's like, well, look, what is the whole user experience on the site? How does the copy and the UX and everything come together? And what kind of emotional experience are they having as a result? Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, if the copy is fun and playful, but the site looks like it was done in 1995, real huge disconnect there. Or if the site looks playful and it looks great, but the copy sounds like they took whatever ChatGPT spit out and they didn't even proofread it. Huge disconnect there again as well. So what is that experience? What's that emotional experience we want people to have as well? It's really powerful, and it really influenced the way I think about conversion rate optimization.
Great. And considering your entire journey, it's been such a beautiful and such an inspiring journey. Is there any piece of advice for women across different industries, not just CRO, right? Across different industries, is there something that you'd like to tell them, people who are dreaming big and are probably not able to take that step, or have stepped into it but are very nervous, right? Any thoughts for them?
I know what I want to say, but I don't know if I'm going to say if I'm going to say it.
So you can say anything.
No, I think it's just to not be afraid. And this is just in women. I think it's women in business in general. It's not just experimentation and things like, but women in business in general. Don't be afraid. You do not have to have all the cards lined up, everything set in place to make a good career or a good life for yourself and do what you love. I'm going to be I'm going to be blunt honest here. I have 7 kids. Like and I'm a working mom and I love it, and I'm able to take care of my family and I'm able to do what I love. And it's like, don't push off traveling overseas because you want to just, don't push off starting a family because you think you need to level up. Don't push off, like, you can have it all. Like, you carve out the life that you want to live. You don't have to follow someone else's game plan for success. You can roll with the punches. You can take things as they come, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you're going to get there. I mean, things for me did not happen overnight. They absolutely didn't. It's taken 8 years of hard work to get to this point, but here I am. If I hadn't put one foot in front of after the other, one step after another, I wouldn't be here today. So you just keep on keeping on, and you will get to where you want to be eventually. But don't think that just because things in life happen that you have to put everything on hold, or you have to just be laser focused on moving up. The richness of those life experiences also help you calibrate your journey along the way, because often when you start out, like most of us who studied something in college are not working in what we imagined that we'd work in. So that's your whole life as well, right? So don't put off, don't put off traveling, don't put off getting married and having kids, don't put off this, don't put those big life things off, because you can have them both. You can build a great career and a life that and a work and do work that you love, and you can have a fulfilling life at the same time. You need to work on the balance, but it's like you will get there.
Yes, definitely. A much needed, much needed words, honestly. I think not just for me, for across the world. I feel it's common for women, right? There are 2 things that I feel that are common across all women. One is the need for perfection. We're just dying for perfection at each point, at every aspect. I feel that's also something that leads to a lot of guilt, right? When we feel that this work wasn't my most perfect work, I would put myself into a lot of guilt as to why I couldn't deliver to the 100% of my capability. But a lot of times I also tell myself, okay, you might not have, if you look at things from a third perspective, maybe yes, you might not have put across your best foot forward this time. But in that very situation, I feel you put up your 100% best. So just honor that and just come out of that guilt and need for perfectionism. So I feel great words from your side, something that I needed to hear, something that I feel a lot of women might want to hear as well.
So that's the thing. And thank you for sharing that. But I think to your point, it's like, what is that pursuit of perfection? That my experience with having kids, and again, some women might not want to have kids, each to their own, whatever, but just don't put off your life because you want to get ahead in your career. Don't put off life. That's basically what I'm trying to say. But it's like, but life isn't perfect all the time. We know when we run experiments, we set the hypothesis, everything happens, and then, well, the stock market crashes. Like, well, who could have predicted? Of course it's not going to convert, but who could have predicted that? Like, there are so many variables that go into absolutely anything, so nothing ever happens in a box. But one of the other things is that as professionals, even your 80% or your 70% or even 60% on a day when you're feeling a little bit off is someone else's 120%. When you're brought on as a professional, you're brought on as what even when you're working in an organization, what you do is still contributing hugely to the client, to the organization, whatever it is. So even if you have a day where it's 50%, it's still for someone else, it's like 150% because they can't do that. You have a skill, you have a talent, you have something that they can't do. So even if you are trying to internally push yourself to this level of perfection, like, okay, aim high, but you're, even just being able to write a simple email, there are people who can't do that, even just can't do that. They struggle to get the words out right. They can't write an email, they can't write a headline, they can't write a landing page, they don't know what they should do in terms of testing. They don't know what kind of hypothesis they should be looking to form, and when you know how to do that. So even if you're not 100% functioning every single day, it's fine because it still is having a positive impact on someone else.
Yes, for sure. Great conversation, Eden. Let's switch gears a little. There's a surprise little round, which we call the rapid fire segment. So just get up.
Cool, great.
Let's
no
switch.
Pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, no pressure.
Oh, no worries.
Perfect. So let's begin the rapid fire segment. My first question, 3 apps that you can't live without.
Oh, Monday.com for work management. Google Calendar, just because it has everything organized in it. It sounds terrible. And 3 is Brain FM. Brain FM, it gives you music based on it's like neurologically tested, where it's great for deep work, for getting into meditation, relaxing. Like, it's brain.fm. It's fantastic. I'm not an affiliate. But I use it pretty much every single day.
Great. I shall definitely explore that. If a movie was made about your life, what would the title be?
Wow. What the title of the movie would be? Expect the Unexpected, I think.
That's a great
something
title.
like that. Expect the unexpected, because just everything I imagined everything is so different to what I imagined or thought. But I couldn't be happier. So
yeah.
Expect the unexpected.
One thing that you'd like to change about the CRO industry?
I think I would like to change the way about how a lot of people talk about us. And in terms of growth marketing and all these, it's like, try this hack, it guarantees you will see X result. It's not true. I mean, like we said before, there are so many variables that go into just anything that underpin the success of any experiment, success or fail of any experiment. And when you try an experiment one time, doesn't mean in a few months when you try it again, it's going to fail. I mean, it's going to fail again. It doesn't mean it's going to win again. I mean, we really don't know. That's the whole point. We're in the process of finding these things out so that we can keep iterating and testing again. And I think just less emphasis on these hacks brought 3,000% lift in conversion rate, but actually break down why. So not just this, it's like, okay, what was it? But also considering that there wasn't a recession or XYZ, or the company like Apple and Nike, they've got 40 years and billions of dollars of advertising spend behind them, so they can put out an ad of a product with no words and it will convert. Yeah. So just things like that gives them context as to how those results came about, and they'll be more believable because it's not the result, it's the process. And I think that's what people get caught up on, because experimentation, it's this ongoing process that's leading to better and better incrementally better results every single time of it. That's the output. It's not a one and done thing. If we did this, lifted conversion rates, great, and then 2 months later conversion rates are back down because, again, something changed in the market, or it was summer and he was selling bathing suits and now it's winter and no one needs bathing suits. So,
definitely
more emphasis on the.
Yep. I think a lot of people really need to understand the process versus the results side of things, definitely. Because everybody looks at CRO as, this is going to give me so and so amount of uplift. And if it doesn't, then they stop. So that's something that definitely needs to change. What's the most random fact you know by heart?
Most random fact.
Yes.
That no one can lick their elbow.
Sorry?
That you can't lick your elbow. I know there's going to be a lot. You cannot actually lick. Yes.
Fair point.
I heard it once when I was a kid, and it's like, of course, it's one of those things that you hear it and you immediately want to try it, but you can't actually. The human body is made in. I mean, there's some people that might be double jointed that might be able to do it, or extremely flexible, but it is fairly impossible for most people to do that. That's a really random fact.
I'm gonna try it after the call. Your guilty pleasure when it comes to TV show or any movie?
No, nothing in particular. I try not to watch as much as possible. What back in the, I mean, now I have so many kids, I don't have time. But back in the day, I mean, I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Like, I grew up on all the books, and when the movies came out, it was like, wow, fantastic. So yeah, I still remember that very fondly. They were really, really well done.
Great. If you had a podcast, who's the first person that you would invite on the show? I think I know the answer.
It would be Talia. It would be Talia. I would totally geek out. And talk with her. We'd probably I'd record for 2 hours and then would never publish it. It would just be mine.
Yeah, I need a copy too. 3 books that you would recommend to our listeners.
Okay. If I'm not the first one, if I'm not mistaken, if I didn't get the title wrong, it's the Psychology of UX by John Yablonsky. I think he's over at Mixpanel now. He went and tied the psychology of psychological principles back to existing UX principles to prove how they influence and impact each other. So why we do certain things in UX, because it's grounded in psychology. It was a really fascinating read. Again, I'm not a UX designer, but everything that we do is related to the user experience in some respects. So reading that was really fascinating. And the book I'm looking over at my shelf. The other one is Zag. It's a book about business strategy and about going the opposite direction when everyone is going one direction, how you need to go the opposite direction. And it's part of that thing with CRO experimentation, as I was talking before. Sometimes people keep optimized to death. They keep iterating and iterating, but they're just going in one direction. They don't take a step back and say, well, maybe what if we took the opposite direction? Mm-hmm. What would happen to the conversion rates then?
Yes.
So if we took an opposite direction with the business strategy, what would happen then? And so it's a really very, very interesting book from that perspective as well.
Got it. And what is the one superpower that you'd like to have?
To be able to have a cooked meal on the table with the snap of my fingers. I think that would be... I think, you know what? Yeah, flying is nice. This is nice, whatever. But to have food, food's on the table, guys. For me, for anyone, just like, okay, dinner got done. Yeah, that's okay. I think that would be amazing. That would be really amazing. That would be life-changing.
Great. One thing that you're tired of explaining to your boss or your client?
The need to trust the process. I think that's the whole. I mean, that's the huge chunk of our entire conversation today. It's a process. It's not. It will likely get us to the desired result, but it's a process, and we need to go through the process to help get to the desired result. So It's not. Again, it's not making surface level changes. It's let's make sure that we're covering all the spots, we're covering everything that we need to, and then we're actually getting to the right result, to going in the right direction, validating along the way that we are in the right path, and that we are doing the right things, and then we will be able to get to that desired result, because anything else is just guessing. And you know, afford to guess.
Yeah.
Businesses can't afford to guess. It's terrible how much guessing goes on.
Yes. One goal or dream that you would like to achieve in the next 3 years?
I think the dream that I would like to achieve within the next 3 years is to have a book published.
Have you thought about some sort of title?
I haven't thought of not a title yet, but I think but I know what it's. I already know what it's going to be about. I have pages of notes. I have this, but to work on that and to get something published within the next 3 years would be fantastic. It would be about. I can tell you what it would be about. It would be about how studying anthropology has a huge impact on then marketing, business strategy, sales, everything throughout an organization. I don't think people talk about it enough.
Yeah.
I don't think people explore enough. They do psychology, they do economics, they do that, but anthropology is getting down to those basic human levels and instincts, and what we and also layering in culture and layering in society and layering in all these other elements. And it's just to how to actually move things forward, how to actually speak to people authentically, how to grow, how to define a strategy. There's so many layers and places that it touches. And I think, again, the emphasis is often on politics, psychology, and economics, all these kinds of things. Whereas if you go back to the basics, you can actually find out so much more.
Perfect. I shall definitely look forward to you publishing your book. I'll definitely purchase it. Perfect. I think that's pretty much it as far as the rapid fire questions are concerned. Thank you so much for taking out your valuable time, and it was lovely talking to you. So many points that you've touched are so close to my heart. So a lovely, lovely conversation that I'm going to hold for the rest of my life for sure. Thank you so much for becoming a part of this podcast, Women in CRO. Anything, any parting thoughts, anything that you'd like to talk?
Nothing in particular. I mean, I think we probably covered all the ground. I think just saying what I said before, like you said, in that pursuit of perfection, we've often put off so many things in life because we're trying to follow someone else's game plan. Just don't. I mean, keep putting one foot on the other, but just keep living your life along the way, and then you'll also calibrate along the way. I mean, don't put something off because you think in a few years' time you'll be in it, you'll be able to appreciate it more. No, maybe the right time is now, and you can still get to where you want to be in 3 to 5 years from now. It's or maybe you'll change. Doing that thing that you love will actually say, you know what, actually I don't think that will make me happy. I think something else will make me happy. And then you've still got time to explore. You haven't put a dream off for several years, and then you find out that that's not the dream that you wanted. So I think it's just live. Don't forget to live while you work.
Yes, definitely. I'm trying to do that. Thank you so much. All right then. Thank you so much. You take care.
Thank you too. All right. Have a great day.